I know, we get this thing together. This was a beer, and then you get up to see what's on the screen. Or maybe we just get wireless to send us.
Roll call, please.
Fred Davis.
Here.
Vicky Brendan Favor. Here. Mary Hess.
Here.
Terry Black.
Here.
Victoria Newport.
Here.
Rick Smith. Howard Solomon.
Here.
Everybody stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start off tonight with recognition of the DeKalb High School chess team, but they are in Byron, I understand.
They're in Byron, they just competed and they won the last two tournaments they competed in. So they were going to try to make it back here, but they're not back yet. So they said I could accept their certificate. Unless we would like to bring them back to the next.
Could we bring them back to the next meeting? Is everybody okay with that? And we could recognize them in person. Let's bring them back. Okay. And next we have acceptance of gifts and donations. That the Board of Education accept with gratitude the donation of $500 from Patrick and Denise Fleming to the DeKalb High School Robotics Club. An anonymous donation of $500 to the DeKalb High School Robotics Club, and the donation of $250 from Jim and Carla Sauber to Brooks Elementary School. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. Roll call, please.
Mary Hess.
Yes.
Terry Black.
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Howard Solomon.
Yes.
Fred Davis.
Yes.
Vicky Brendan Favor.
Okay, and really quick for our robotics.
How's it going?
How are you? Hi, what are you going to use the donation money for? What's your project?
There are a number of things we need to do. We actually compete over spring break, and part of getting into that competition is a $6,000 buy-in. So some of the money goes toward paying for that registration, and then in addition to that, that doesn't include the cost of some of the robots, the parts itself, some of the programs we need to actually write the code to make the robot move. There's a lot of things we need to purchase with that money. Denise Fleming actually has a budget somewhere in the documents. I'm sure you guys have a copy of it. I mostly do more of the technical stuff. I don't have all the information on it, but we are really happy to have those donations. We appreciate it.
How many kids do you have participating in that?
Right now we have 20 on the rolls. To the competition this Saturday, we're going to be 7 sides. So we have 7 students that are right now currently active, even with everything else going on. A couple of our students are on math team who are competing. A couple are in forensics who have a big thing going on Saturday. So even with everything else going on, we have 7 students who are willing to step up right now and say, yeah, we're ready to go for that. So
Great. Well,
really
good luck. Good luck. We'll be excited to hear how you do.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we have public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. Any cards? Okay, up first we have Jennifer Royer, redistricting plan.
My name is Jennifer Royer. I'm a parent in the district as well as an employee. I'm just here to talk to you about the elementary school redistricting plan right now, and as it sits, Islandwood, which is just north of Dresser, is not part of the Brooks plan. It would actually be part of Jefferson. We're here to ask that you include that particular street in the Brooks plan because there are already 3 out of 4 families that are here are children of the Brooks. And I've been a part of the Brooks family for 9 years now. I have a son who's here, and it would be, I think, a total of 4 families and 6 students that we're asking you to consider including Islandwood for.
Thank you. Next we have Keith Graham, redistricting plan.
Good gonna be listening here. Um, sorry. So my family and I are going to be in the area for a year, and by the time we formed some really good relationships, one is a close family, and it was brought to my attention that the redistribution of the districts. We understand that no decisions are made likely, but all things considered, I too, as part of representing on Island Board, would like to have my request considered to have us remain at Brooks. Definitely be good for our family. My wife has become very involved as a volunteer in Brooks, and that's all I ask. So, thank you.
Thank you. Autumn Kelly, redistricting.
I'm Autumn Kelly, one of the parents that live on Islandwood. Currently, my children go to Founders Elementary School, originally from Wright, and then we got moved to Founders. So my children get bus anyway, and that works for us because my husband, for childcare purposes, doesn't get home till 4. So with it being moved, if the boundary was moved to Jefferson, I would have to find different ways to get my children home safely without, too much work. So anyway, so the families that current families are there, they're all going to Brooks. Who would like to be included in that boundary line, go to Brooks so that for support, all the kids in the neighborhood go to the same school, easier for scheduling, we can help each other out with childcare, days off school, just a little bit easier for parents, both working parents, full-time working parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Ray Gooden, redistricting.
Good evening. I am with the Islandwood group, so I don't want to, I guess, lack of a better term, beat a dead horse, but I want to provide support for our group. I think you can notice with it, our group is consistency, and I think that's a big impact for us. Our family in particular have been a part of the Brooks schools now for a few years. I think that consistency has been a very positive thing. We have tremendous relationships and many positive experiences there. So we, along with other people on Island, would like to stay consistent for that period of time.
Thank you. And Stephanie Gooden, redistricting plan.
Childcare is hard to come by.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight. First, I want to say I understand how hard it is to make a change like this in the district. And I was at the community forum at DeKalb High School. And one of the points where they want to minimize the impact of families by making these changes. And one straight Islandwood would minimize the impact on families by it being 6 kids and 4 families. Our family has been a part of Brooks for 4 years. We've built a lot of relationships, and we are involved in the school, not just parents of students. We're actually involved in the school and planning the school. So we're asking if we can have Islandwood included in that Brooks plan to help our families with the adjustment and just minimize the impact on the district plan. So,
thank you. And next we have board committee reports and correspondence. Technology committee is not that stuff, okay? No? Okay. All right. Presentations. DHSMA, DeKalb High School Military Club, Jeremiah Farrell, Dennis Waymeyer, and Jose Jacquez. This is an informational item.
Well, actually, Jonathan has really put this together, so I'm going to let him do a lot of the talking. But before he does, one of the things that, of course, we do at DeKalb High School is we kind of branch out into all the different areas, like the trades, the going to college, going to community college. And, of course, we do have recruiters that come in. But one of the things that that John has really kind of pushed for is having this military club, and it would really serve our students in helping educate what the military does, what military life is like. And one of the things that I could see as a huge benefit is being able to um, add to what we do in our student services department to be able to give students even a bigger look at what the military life would be like. And so we kind of see this as a branch of what we already do, but it would really help by letting the students kind of lead this push and lead the group. And that's what we want John to talk to you about tonight.
Yeah, with the DeKalb High School Military Alliance, or club, as you could say, we hope show the educational benefits and, access basic needs that students could have upon looking about the military. We can basically, we can help students develop another idea rather than having to go to college and entering the military and having another option if you cannot afford college or any other educational opportunity. It does help students without the stress of realizing that there's only one choice, and it does help them with, daily necessities.
And I know that Officer Jaquez could not be here tonight, but did you want to read what he sent you? I think everybody knows that Officer Jaquez actually came back from his military duty, and the students know that. And so having him, I worked for the military for 10 years in the Air Force, and allowing us to kind of work together to be able to give them this, I think Officer Jaquez really did a good job of kind of articulating what his feelings are for that as well.
Members of the board.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout my years as a school resource officer and National Guardsman, I have always been willing to help the student body see the advantages of military service. Students have come to me asking advice or help with joining or choosing the correct path. Some have even asked if the military is the right choice. I have been brutally honest with them since it is such a commitment that I believe they appreciate the honesty. Having a military club that would expose the students to the culture and the opportunities to enroll in the military would really improve their knowledge and ability to make an informed choice. Exposure to veterans, recruiters, and current members will allow students to get direct source information. Quite often, students get their military information from television, social media, and movies. Usually, these are bad sources for career choice of what military life really is like. I thoroughly support the DHSMA and will participate in mentoring of the students to the best of my ability. Officer Jacquez.
One last, Michael Lofthouse is here as well. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, in addition to that, I think one thing that's really going to help this club be a successful kind of aspect for our students here is we have individuals who help serve in the Air Force and kind of the support services. Officer Jacquez has really helped out in terms of talking about the educational benefits, things like ROTC and academy stuff. And then my role in this is I have the perspective from the enlisted soldier. The soldier that really represents what the students are looking up to, the individual who wasn't really sure what they wanted to do after high school and saw enlisting as an option. Oftentimes we start to push our students towards, well, maybe try community college, maybe try ROTC, and very rarely, with the exception of the recruiters who come, once a month to the cafeteria and do push-up competitions, we don't talk to students frequently about what the enlisted side of the Army is like. Like Officer Jacquez says, they see the movies, they see some of the stuff on Netflix, and that's about it. So one of the roles I would like to help fill is we have the National Guard Commission Officer, we have people who are on the student and support services, family services side, and I would really like to be the reference for students who are interested in the active duty, enlisted side of the military, where most of the soldiers actually end up going. And that's kind of the role I was hoping to fill in this as well, in addition to the support we already have from this club. I just also want to say it's a club that we had when I was a student here at DeKalb High School, and it wasn't this trying to funnel kids into the service. I know that some people kind of had that reservation about it. We watched documentaries, we went to museums, we did a lot of things talking about, like Officer Jacquez said, the culture of the military, more than just trying to shove people into it, which I know sometimes the recruiters can get that intimidating vibe. There's a lot more to the military than just trying to get everybody in it. there's also trying to get people to support and see what we do. And that's, I think it'd be a really important thing to have for us.
Yeah, it helps give them a good perspective as well as show them what it's like and like a verbal experience about what the military could be in the future for them. And we also have the support of Marines, Army, Navy, and National Guard recruiters. We can also help teach students about the possibilities about going to academies, Coast Guard Academy, Naval Academy, West Point, and all of those.
Have any questions for us?
Is this something that, a club that's in a lot of high schools? Is this, or did you guys kind of create this? Because I haven't heard of it before.
I can speak to that, just that I've been through student teaching and clinical experiences. Many high schools have a program called JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. I know that East Aurora had one, Genoa also had one, and I'm not sure what the structure of that really looks like because I didn't participate in those. But most students, or pardon, most of the schools that I've been in do have some kind of, if it's not a history club, it's an ROTC branch.
I think it's a fabulous idea. I really like the one where they can participate in exercises that they would do at training camp.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for it.
We do have a list of field trip goals.
Yeah, great places. Any other questions, Howard?
First of all, I've looked at the proposal and see that it is, as far as I can tell, something that will begin every day of the school year experience. Is that correct? And is it necessary that it be that much of an experience? Yes.
I don't think it's going to be an everyday. I think it's going to be we'll have a meeting just like maybe either once a month or twice a month is what we talked about. But then there could be some more that where for recruiters we're working with them, or if we have just a military week or military month, something that we can do, but it won't be every day for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed during student council meetings that like during the spirit week, they have like sports weeks and everything. The students can wear sports clothes whenever they want. Like I've tried pushing for ideas about like honoring their Veterans Day, and I think we could open that type of idea with the military program.
Another question that came to my mind when I saw the list of, I believe it's 14 field trips. Is it the intention to go on all of them or some of them? What's the plan there?
Well, it's their goals. We plan to contact them to see if we would be able to go on trips, but I can't say that we will go on all of them or most of them, but we will certainly try.
John is a highly motivated young man. Let's just put it that way. And so let me just say that it was his idea. He's the one that came to us with this proposal. We'll temper some of those things and make sure that it's not overbearing, overused, and we'll make sure that it's kind of brought into the school, not as a be all like having the military, but I think just seeing that John is really excited about this, and it's something that I know the first couple of weeks of school he came into my office every day to talk about it. I know he's gone to see Officer Quiz and talked about it. So I think what you're seeing in this is a lot of enthusiasm. We'll temper that with what really can be done throughout the school year.
Since you're talking about tempering, that raises my last question.
Sure.
There are some community groups who are would like very much to deal with those persons who are leaving high school and proposing or thinking about going to the military, but which wish to present a opposed opinion. Are you willing to invite in or hear from such groups?
Well, one of the things that we do in student services, and I think this kind of plays into what you're asking, is that we do give the pros and cons of what it is to go into the military or even going to college and the cost associated with that. And so I think what we'll talk about is some of the things that would be a con of going into the military. The signing in and actually being gone for 4 years or being signed up in the military. There are things that we can talk about with that. So I wouldn't say that we would be opposed to it, but I think we would need to be open to what military history has been all about and that there are opposing views to that. Absolutely. Would you agree with that, Chuck? Michael?
Any other questions? Thank you, John, for presenting and for the enthusiasm in getting this idea going. Thank you. Let's go to business and finance. TIP City of DeKalb intergovernmental agreement. This is an action item.
I make a motion to table item 7A, the City of DeKalb intergovernmental agreement until the December 15th school board meeting.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Discussion? Okay. Could I have a vote on the motion, please?
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Fred Davis,
Yes.
Vicky Herman Davis,
Yes.
Mary Hess,
Yes.
Jerry Malak,
Yes.
Lori Newport.
Yes. Now we need to have another motion on voting yes or no on the actual motion made. So do I have a motion?
Table this already?
No. Don't. You can- I think you can. Okay. Second, you can second. Okay, now discussion. Okay, so you want to go ahead, Doug, and explain this?
Basically, the holdup, for lack of a better term, is simply that it did not get through the city council. The city council was supposed to take action on the intergovernmental agreement before being put forward for a vote. And it was just a logistical issue with documentation not being completed in time that they were able to vote on it at their last. So the next meeting, Andrea, is
December 14th.
14th, so it'll be the night before our board meeting. It's anticipated it will be approved then, and that's why we're asking.
And so then we would bring it back, it'd be tabled for now, we'll bring it back for an action item on the 15th.
After the city either approves or denies.
Okay, and so this will be the vote now, for yes or no on tabling it and bringing it back.
Jerry Malak,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Fred Davis,
Yes.
Vicky Herman Davis.
Yes.
Mary Hess.
Yes. Thank you. Supplemental deficiency tax levy 2015 tax year. Andrea, this is an informational item.
Correct. So this evening, what I have for you is just for you to consider, for our next meeting, actually, and this won't be brought back to you until January when we have the finalized numbers. But what has happened, back when we passed our referendum, we issued our bonds in different pieces over a 2-year period of time. And so back in 2009, we issued $35 million worth of general obligation bonds, and they were called Build America bonds. And under these bonds, what was afforded to us was an interest rate rebate of 35% from the federal government. Well, since their sequestration back in 2013, when they were pulling back on funding, they have not been able to live up to their obligation and pay us that full interest amount. So with that, effectively what ends up happening is that we are shorted that payment. The way to make up for it is to add it on to our 2015 tax levy that we are going in the middle of that process. So in front of you tonight is an estimated dollar amount of what we would add on to the levy with your approval. If not, this then essentially is paid out of the fund balance of the bond and interest fund. So you have an option that we can add it to the levy and this gets passed on to the taxpayers. And the total amount that we're shorted is $47,808.25. And again, that is estimate at this point.
Questions?
have a question. So $47,000, you're gonna add this to the, potentially add this to the tax base. So what's that turn out to be? Any idea? I mean, it's gotta be minuscule.
It is, yeah, you mean by household?
Yes, by household.
It is.
Very, very small amount,
Yes.
only 47,000.
Right.
Okay, so from that perspective, I don't have a problem. What I do have a problem with is the general, I want to call it a principle, I hope it doesn't get to be a principle, but the notion that we can be promised something by some entity, government or whomever, go ahead on that basis with a program or a building or whatever.
Right.
You know, and then later, as now, find out that, oh, promise was not much good. Now, 47,000 is not too big of a deal, but it might be something in the future that's quite a lot larger than 47,000. So I don't like the principle, the concept of how this is actually coming about, and I can see where it could be a lot worse than it actually is. So maybe this is a good lesson for us.
Right.
I don't have any problem voting, you know, to go ahead and put this on with all the rest of our costs. It's all terrible already.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but I do think we can take this as a warning, you know, as a caution, you know, for things perhaps coming down the road.
Right. And I would agree absolutely. When these bonds came out, they were very appealing because of this refund. And unfortunately, as we also realize with the state can grant you money and then they can prorate money and they can take money away. Well, so can the federal government. And at the end of the day, as taxpayers, it's really us who ends up making up the difference again.
And it's a different president.
Well, right, it's though the result of the Great Recession. Right, when everybody had to pull back, yes, everything they had access to, they reduced, and we were impacted by that.
Another,
Howard, go ahead.
okay, thanks. Another aspect of this that concerns me is, for instance, with potential for locking in property taxes. Governor Rauner's been talking about that. The $21 million grant that we were so fortunate to get some years ago now and are running on the surplus, if you will, of that grant. It keeps our general fund where it is now. We're still neck above water, unlike some other districts that weren't so fortunate. But all of this, to me, points to controlling costs. You know, and we've been lucky to have this 21 million. We've been fortunate to have, well, I guess I would say a great tax base, but you know, at least something. And so we haven't had to make huge cuts. But had we not gotten that $21 million, we would be deep into cuts right now. And the 47,000 would really mean a lot.
Right, no doubt.
So once again, I want to be very, very careful and very, very conservative in my thinking because of what is probably to come, unless the state can make a miraculous turnaround. We already know that the GSA is prorated down to whatever, 91% or what is it?
Right, 91.
Yeah, compared to the regular 100%, and that's a very large fraction of what we use for supporting all the programs. We will have to learn as a board in all districts to make cuts. We will have to look very closely at programs and all kinds of things. And I would just love it if Governor Rauner and whoever else is in charge of control of the State Board of Education would, when they do things talking about property tax freezes and other loss of revenue to school boards like that, that at the same time they would talk about reducing mandated programs, reducing costs that right now we must, because of the State Board of Education and the legislature, we must perform, and yet have no specific revenue stream for some of these things. So just a lot to think about going forward, and I think we sometimes are maybe given a rosy picture, you know, because we're fairly well off because of that $21 million that is sitting in our fund. So just something to be concerned about.
Okay, Howard?
And these two interest amounts that are listed here, 7.3% and 6.8%. Are these the interest rates on existing bonds that we are supposed to be paying back?
No, that is how, that is the interest amount of which is calculated of how much they're reduced, how much they took away from us, the percentage from that total payment.
Okay.
So each year that could change.
as stated in there. The one year it was a 7.3% sequestration, and now it's gone down to 6.8.
What is,
So the feds have a little more money.
what is the interest rate on the bond curve? Would you know?
Yeah, I don't have that kind of time.
Thank you.
Then do we have a consensus to bring this back? Yes. Thank you. Okay, next we have staffing proposal, DHS, HMS, any person? This is the informational item also.
We're a couple months into the modified cleaning schedule, and so we've been taking a look at it to make some adjustments. And I have two proposals in front of you today as informational. One of them relates to Huntley Middle School. And if you recall, at one of my updates of last month, I believe it was, we did talk about increasing and trying out cleaning of ELDC to ELDC wing every night versus every other night because of the needs of that area. And because of that, that has added hours at that building that are needed to, it amounts to just about 3 hours a night on average. It's an every other night addition, but we average over 2 weeks. In addition, when I put the proposal together, I actually had determined that Huntley Middle School was needing 30 hours, and based on the splits of 4s and 6 and 8 hour people, it came out to 28 is what they were given for second shift coverage, the cleaning time. So they actually have been going 2 hours a little short since we actually started the year. So between that and the addition of the ELDC wing getting cleaned every night, that's why I'm proposing the additional 4-hour person. That does amount to approximately $19,400 a year for a part-time staff member. A 4-hour, it does not qualify as full-time, which does not qualify for the benefit. In regards to the high school, when I put the proposal together, we knew the high school was going to need a higher percentage, or I should say, a reduction of hours in a lesser amount than other schools. Whenever I factored it before, I considered about a 25% reduction in hours in my original proposal, but the high school is at a higher level because of the needs of the high school and the areas that we do clean every night. The athletic wing is demanding more than we anticipated on an every night cleaning because of the locker rooms and the bathrooms, as well as the weight rooms and that. And even the classrooms that are down there, they're used quite frequently by teams for team meeting areas. They eat in there, they meet in there, and subsequently messes are left in there that cannot be left for the classes that are the general ed classes that are going to take place there the next day. So with that, in addition, with the high school's extracurricular activities, we also have need for extra hours at all times at this building, and we try to add those extra hours to part-time people to avoid overtime costs. But by adding this additional 4 hours, which we've identified as being short in the athletic wing to get the proper cleaning done, that will give us that flexibility that should extra hours be needed because of extracurricular activities, we're able to offer it to our part-time staff at a straight rate rather than add it to our full-time staff at an overtime rate. Again, same cost as a part-timer at Huntley of about $19,408 a year.
Questions for Tammy?
I could have sworn that when, tell me if my memory's bad, sorry to play. We talked about reducing staff at the beginning of the year, or back in August. There was definite discussion about the needs of the ELDC and the kindergarten classrooms needing extra attention because of the age of the students and their needs. So I'm wondering what has changed since that initial decision making.
In the start of the year, we didn't have ELDC as an every night cleaning. We wanted to give it a shot because kindergarten classes are every other night, as are all first through 12th grade. But the SOL classes were every night, if that's what you're thinking of. We automatically, when we started, we did SOL classes every night. Lab classes, when there's a lab event going on, are every night. But the ELDC, talking with Lisa Gorschels, we decided, no, let's give this a shot. Let's see if we can do this every other night and not put those extra hours on. After about a month and a half, 2 months, we just took a look at it again and said, we're just not meeting the needs of these classrooms because of the needs of the students, being that the early childhood classes have higher need levels than our kindergarten classes do because of the students coming in, the age. they eat snack and have milk in their classroom every day. So obviously the food messes and in addition, the sensory projects that they do involve messy things. That's part of sensory world, and because of that, they create a lot more messes than many of our other classes. So it was just about a couple of months ago that we just decided that we needed to revisit this. We tested it out to see how long it would take to do this, and have determined that it's taking about 5 hours every other night to be able to clean the opposite area. And another need from the LBC is their toilet training issue. That with those type of cleanups, we need to make sure we're addressing those and cleaning those areas beyond just in the bathroom.
You have a question, Tammy. In your backup paperwork, you show a 25% reduction in most buildings was the initial plan with the every other day and so on. And then you show the salaries that will be required to put staff back where you see this extra need. Can you tell me, because one's in percentage, the other's in actual dollars, can you tell me something about what percentage of that savings are we giving back by adding these dollars?
Well, we had a total staffing savings was at about $200,000 initially. So now we're looking at a $40,000 increase approximately with the 2 part-time staff. So
okay, thanks.
It was presented at 250,000 savings, but 50 of that was cleaning chemical savings that we're anticipating because we're cutting back on it.
I'm real curious about not just with this issue with staffing custodial things, but in general, when we do something differently than we've been doing, and we expect the savings, how much do we actually see after some period of time? Because you can never hit it dead on.
I'll be back next board meeting with a dashboard update that will give you some financial glimpse of where we're at. I'll have these in here as just so the numbers are there, even though it'll be approval at the next meeting if you will welcome it back. And we'll have those numbers for cleaning chemical reductions, staffing reductions. I'll be including information such as what overtime we've booked compared to last year, what subs we've had to pay compared to last year, medical leaves or leaves of absence of our staff compared to last year, all of that information. So hopefully that will give you, again, a quick glance at where we're at now that we're a few months into this. And then I will continue to come back every few months with an update so we can see where we're trending.
Yeah, the dashboard should be a help, but not just with custodial. In this case, that's what we're talking about. But anytime we do, I guess I would call it an experiment of sorts. If it hasn't been done before in this district, it's an experiment. And it could be HVAC in the building, for instance, or it could be how many teachers per class or how many kids per teacher and so on and so forth, right? Anything that we change from the historic norm might have some savings. It probably will if we think about it, but it'd also be good for us to be able to look back at it like we are, like you're showing us right now, so that we can project going forward whether we ought to try something over here or not, whether our general efforts, that savings actually pay off. So thank you. It's good information. I got a little problem with the statement you're making about, last couple of months you talked about, but yet you come to us last month and said everything's working great. You did not mention anything at that meeting about maybe changing in early childhood. So, really. And also, my second part is, what's the difference between early childhood and a kindergarten class? They're all dirty. They're dirty. So, are you just feeling more flat from pre-K early childhood than any other schools?
I don't feel that at all. I do think that ELDC is different in that, again, the needs of the early childhood students, and Christy maybe will want to speak to this.
I think you did a really nice job of it. It really has, it's about the needs of the students and the needs of the sensory piece, and there's lots of projects that different than an academic curriculum that's perhaps in a kindergarten classroom. It requires a lot of hands-on manipulatives, but I think one of the big key pieces is the toileting. It's the diapering.
And I get that. I clean toilets. I understand. But the bottom line is, it's still dirty. You can doctor it up however you want to. It's still a dirty room. And
the other piece is the ability of the students to pitch in at the kindergarten level versus 3 to 5-year-olds, then 3 to 5-year-olds that have additional special needs.
And I understand that as well, I do.
And in regards to, looking at it back when I presented before and just gave a quick update on where we were at, I do think I did mention that we were revisiting the ELDC wing at that time. It was just in discussion mode and we were trying to figure out how to accomplish that with part-time staff so we wouldn't test this out and adding overtime hours. So I do believe that was presented at that.
So other than just these here issues that you brought from us, everything else is going pretty good.
We're identifying areas that we think need extra attention through our inspections that we complete between Frank, Steve, and I. And some of that is performance issues. Some of it, like we've identified here at the high school after I presented to that report, was that we were spreading one of our staff members way too thin. We were expecting a staff member who was working 6 hours was his shift to actually cover 9 hours of work. And when we identified that, and that was across between the fine arts wing and the athletic wing, that's where I sat down with David Gosnell, Steve Lavender, Frank Tigas, and said, okay, what's wrong here? What's wrong with this picture? And we had done some shuffling of staff. One of our one of our part-time staff that worked days had been moved to the nights a little bit, and then one of the gentlemen that was working part-time in the athletic wing had been moved to the general ed area. And that left us those hours short, and we were trying to absorb those in other part-time staff, and it was not appropriate to try to squeeze in that much time on a regular basis, on a nightly basis, into a 6-hour shift and expect a cleanliness level in the fine arts wing and the athletic wing, knowing that those two wings, we do somewhat play those by ear. Sometimes we walk in the auditorium, there's nothing been going on in there, and so there is no need to clean it, but it could be on the schedule. So we skip it and we pay extra attention somewhere else. Same thing happens in athletics and the band room and all of those. It's really somewhat of a judgment call on that part when it comes to the high school classrooms and high school areas.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you, but I mean, skipping something is no good. Gotta be clean. Gotta be clean, that's the bottom line. And I find it hard to believe that you didn't anticipate this when you modified this cleaning schedule. You knew there were gonna be problems.
Well, and I presented those.
Yeah.
I did talk about that when I presented that. We didn't think this was a foolproof plan, that we knew we'd have to make changes. That was the important part of us doing inspections, talking to the heads, talking to the principals and the staff. That's why we do. We have a schedule of check-ins and level 1 and level 2 inspections that are expected by Frank and Steve Lavner and myself to make sure we're keeping our thumb on the pulse of what's going on in the building. And I mean, personally, I think going 3 months in and saying, okay, you know what, we need 2 more. I'd rather do that than see our buildings deteriorate to a level that all of a sudden they're harder to bring back to the standard we need them at. I could not anticipate 100% exactly the needs. We were doing it on more of a market type basis of what we felt an industry average would be if we were reducing class count by so many each night. But some buildings have more bathrooms than other buildings, and we clean bathrooms every night. So it's not an exact science. We've had to try it out.
Yeah, actually, when we did present this, and food service will be brought back to you as well, a dashboard so you can look at it. We were very open to say, here's a plan, but until you live with it, you don't know exactly where you may need to make modifications. And so we did say we need a trial period, and we would make adjustments accordingly with the responses from the supervisor going out to different facilities and all of that feedback. So it is. This is basically like the first quarter of all of this, and after those examinations, we do need to react to what those findings are.
Yes, you don't know till you try, right?
Right.
Just one more comment. I just thought as Fred was asking questions and going back and forth there, at the Early Learning Center, that's a change in of itself. We don't have a long track record of what it costs to operate that place. It used to be spread out
It was.
in four different buildings, I think. Right. So now we brought it all together. We hope that there was a savings and there was better education as a result of that. It seems to be going fairly well as far as I can tell. But that's a good reason why you might not nail it on the first try. Because there really isn't a long track record there.
In addition, I just like to say, I think we opened one additional class that we hadn't anticipated at the start of the school year, and we're going to be opening another class
Most likely.
after winter break, most likely. So there's 2 more classrooms that were not necessarily on our original every other night leaving, and now we're not on an every night.
And thank you, Carrie, that was very well said, that is a big part of it. It's a moving target, so, thank you. And do we have a consensus to bring this back as an action item? Okay, thank you, Tammy. Next, we have the business consent agenda. That the Board of Education approve the business consent agenda items A through D. Do you have a motion? So moved. Second. Discussion? Okay, roll call?
Davis?
Yes.
Yes.
Mary Hess?
Yes.
Mayor Milat?
Yes.
Victoria Newport?
Yes.
Howard Sullivan?
Yes.
Next is the non-business consent agenda. That the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items A through D. So moved. Second. Any discussion? All right, roll call please.
Turn in favor?
Yes.
Mary Hess?
Yes.
Carrie Milat?
Yes.
Victoria Newport?
Yes.
Howard Sullivan?
Yes.
Fred Davis?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is new business, intergovernmental agreement for Illini Cloud Services. This is an informational item. Dr. Miller?
Yes, you know, the chance for the agreement, it has, by the way, you know, the Illini Cloud has been operating now for 4 years, I believe. And one of the major changes is actually just in the organizational structure. Under the current agreement that it's been going for the past 4 years is basically that the chief technology officers have been the governing board. And the major change in this contract, on this intergovernmental agreement, is that now that would be fall upon superintendents of the 3 hosting districts, which is Bloomington, DeKalb, and Murfreesboro. And that's the most significant change. Our council already reviewed it, saw no problems whatsoever with it. If you'd like more background information on the Illini Cloud and the purpose of it, I'd be happy to hand it to you, but we'll be here a while. But maybe let me just try to cut to the chase. There's a lot of private companies that host will serve as hosting clouds for school districts. They cost a lot of money. We basically could do it literally pennies to the dollar. For example, if you went down and looked at Exhibit B, you'll see that for a small district, our initial cost for their services, for their backup services, is I think about $500. And if we ourselves just wanted to have IS Corporation, which is a Skyward partner, back up our Skyward database, that would be the cost about $15,000 a year. So the idea was with this consortium, think of it sort of like a cooperative. You got DeKalb in the north, Bloomington in the middle of the state, Murfreesboro in the south of the state, all with their servers. It's basically redundant systems. So anything we've got stored here is also stored in Bloomington and Murfreesboro, as is all data for every member district. And so if something catastrophic were to happen in DeKalb, we would be backed up in both Bloomington and Murfreesboro. And the idea was to create this Illini Cloud by K-12 districts for K-12 districts. And by the way, I think Appendix C lists some of our current members. We're currently actually talking with Clark County in Las Vegas. That's a school district with 340,000 students. They're interested in joining our consortium as members. And obviously, you're not restricted by physical space. So they actually were at the LUDA conference. This was a big topic at the fall LUDA conference. And they had 6 representatives from Clark County that we met with. But again, the biggest change in this is that they want to move the board of directors from the chief technology officers to the respective superintendents for DeKalb, Bloomington, and Murphy.
Questions?
Yeah, I got about a million legal questions.
I thought you were ten.
Let's keep it to one.
Okay, one or two. I don't know if I should say they're legal questions, but I thought maybe you could help me understand. I've read this contract several times, and I'll put the easy one out there. I think it's the easy one out there first. Point 10 on page 4 talks about confidentiality, and it mentions District 300.
Yes.
Which has fallen out of the consortium, right?
That's correct.
So is that correct or proper for School District 300 to be mentioned in this contract?
It should not be.
Okay,
It should not
so
be.
that's just a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, so just strike
Thank you.
SD 300. The other question might be, well, probably you can explain it fairly well, but I'm not quite sure I understand it. So the fiscal agent.
You notice Brian Topin's not here, right? It was there at the genesis of this.
In principle, I understand the whole deal, I think it's great, but I wonder a little bit about levying taxes, because now we're gonna have a fiscal agent, one of the consortium members will become the fiscal agent. And it says that they have no, on 3C, they have no power fiscal.
I'm sorry, what page?
I'm on page 4.
Page 4?
I think it's top of page 4, yeah, page 4. That would be 3C. The administrative and fiscal agent has no power to levy any taxes or incur any indebtedness unless authorized by the consortium board or otherwise included within the approved budget for the consortium. So just the general principle of how do you operate this consortium? I mean, who's paying for it? Where do the funds come from? How do we appropriate the funds?
Basically the fees that are charged cover the cost. It's a non-profit. Think of it as like cooperative.
So it's fee-based.
It's fee-based, and for us as a hosting district, it's basically we've already got the infrastructure in place, and what they pay, what the members pay, basically just it's pretty much a break-even deal. So while that provision is in there, it's not anticipated that there would be any additional costs. I mean, worst case scenario, we might have to go back and look at our service agreements and raise that a little bit. But right now, again, it is sort of a lofty altruistic goal to sort of, knowing what the state of finances are for all school districts in the state of Illinois, to give them a very cost-effective means to have all their data systems backed up at a fraction of what they would pay in the private market.
When I saw the part about the IT officer being replaced by the superintendents of the district, I right away, when I saw this about levying taxes, wondered whether there is an authority issue, as to who can initiate, a tax levy of some sort. Certainly, well, I'm not trying to figure out, so I don't really know.
But we're not a tax. I mean, the Atlantic Cloud is not a taxing body.
Yeah, that's where my concern is, that it not become one.
It can.
That this contract doesn't allow it,
right,
to do that. Right. Because it talks about levying taxes, and it has to be with the approved budget of the consortium.
Right.
So if it said levy fees, I wouldn't have asked the question.
I agree. But thank you for that. I'll make sure we get that revised on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Good consensus to bring this back?
Thank you.
Next is the proposed school calendar for the 2016-2017 school year. Jim Coleman?
If you'll permit me, I'm going to stay seated because I'm not sure I'm going to have to spend the night. I'm not sure I'm going to get out of this seat. But anyway, what you have before you are actually two calendars for you to look at and have feedback on. As at an earlier meeting, I presented to you the calendar proposal that came out of the calendar committee. I had input from the board as well as from administrators, and from that we sent it back to the committee, and based on your feedback, they had changed some things and made a new proposal. I worked with them on that, We reviewed it at the superintendent's cabinet and had some concerns, which we then put together a second proposal for your review that addressed some of the concerns. One of them was the collaborations days being consistently the second Thursday of every month that it takes place for the purpose of families being able to plan better. We felt that was important. We also found one of the big concerns was spring break county-wide, because we do share services with some of the special services. For us to have a different spring break than the other districts in the county would mean that some of those services would be on vacation when we were meeting, and we would be meeting when they were, we would have 2 weeks where we would not go inside and get those services.
Just to add that, there was a consensus among all the county superintendents last year that we all wanted to have spring break at the same time. Just to be consistent, because a lot of us access KBC, and obviously a lot of, well, for example, a lot of our employees don't live necessarily in the district, so they may have children in Sycamore, Janelle, Kingston. So the idea was to get everybody on the same week. And there was consensus among all the superintendents that was desirable in the last week in March.
No, and then the other thing is that we did take the dates, things backing up to each other, which ends up being a very long gap between school attendance days. That we avoided that, and we also have two half days set aside for parent-teacher conferences. That is in the current contract that expires June 30, and because of regulations, it cannot be that way the way it was entered. So we're having to address that as well. So we brought to you a copy of both, the one that was presented by the committee and the one that is being presented by the administration.
Questions?
Can you give me more detail on the half day?
The current teacher contract has a half day to prepare for parent-teacher conferences that's built in. The only way to enter those into the system that we enter the calendar in the state system is to count them as something that they are not, like a school improvement day. And if we do that, we have to have a schedule of events, not something unstructured like preparation.
Any other questions? Does anybody want to recommend a calendar that they like, or you want us to come back with an option?
I got a question for Jim. Does the idea or question of snow days impact one or the other calendar disproportionately? Is one more amenable to another?
They both actually end at the same time, and they have the snow emergency days that are added on to the end, 5 days.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a nice thing to say.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve the administration.
We need to bring it back.
Bring it back.
Okay. Can we all agree on that, the administration's recommendations for the calendar?
It is the most, it contains the most complaints, so yes.
Okay. I'll agree with that too. Okay. All right, so,
Go back as an action item.
okay, thank you. Okay, next we have recommended revisions to Board of Education policies. This is the second reading, and it's also an action item. That the Board of Education hold a second reading and approve recommended revisions to Board of Education policies as attached. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Made the points the last time.
Okay.
Continue to stick by it.
Okay, all right. And roll call, please.
Vicky Krivitsky? Yes. Mary Hess?
Yes.
Sarah Malek?
Yes.
Terry Newburgh,
Yes.
Howard Thomas,
No.
Fred Davis.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, the meeting will be adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody.